Hi everyone. This video is for players or potential players for the upcoming campaign of the Tyrannical Tales of Saltkeep. So this video is going to be split into two parts. The first section is, believe it or not, a brief version of the story so far in all the D&D campaigns that we've done. And this is to get all the information that you need if you're a new player, or for players who have been in my previous campaigns. This is info that some of you just might have forgotten. So it's important to know that most of the information in the first section, even though players know it, a lot of it your character just won't know going forwards. Okay? The second and shorter part is all about the current state of Toril. And Toril is really the world that most of the campaigns have took place in, and that this campaign will take place in too. And Faerun is just the main continent. So the information about the current state of the settings, like all of this stuff, your character would most likely know. Also, dead quick, I will just throw a too long, didn't read type of summary at the end of the video for anyone who's short on time and just wants to get straight to the point, and maybe, you know, you're not that hot on details, which is absolutely fine. So for everyone else, grab a brew, get comfy, and let's get stuck in to what's happened so far. So this tale starts nearly 150 years ago on this planet of Toril, and it starts with the adventure of Lost Mine of Phandelver. In this adventure, a group of adventurers were hired to help some dwarven brothers retake their heritage of the lost mine of Phandelver. And after dealing with many setbacks, most of them set by a drow wizard called Nesnar, the Black Spider, the adventurers finally made their way to this lost mine and to this magical forge that lie deep at the back of the mines. And although they knew from talking to the dwarves that this forge was expected to have some magical properties, the reality of what they found was something much more powerful and terrifying. What they found was that this forge was a swirling, destructive vortex of a much more divine arcana power. This vortex was threatening a town above it, above the mines, called Phandelver in its current state, and the adventurers basically used some of the gifts from this vortex, dipping their weapons in to actually defeat the Black Spider. And from that point onwards, these adventurers were now known as the heroes of Phandelver. So this leads us on to the second campaign, called Vessel. And Vessel took place 10 years later, in a period later known by the people of Faerun as the Time of Troubles. So Vessel followed a group of adventurers who were on the run from the law, and they were kind of forced to throw their lot in with some mercenaries who called themselves the Free Company of Counterbalance. And these guys they just travelled on a large ship. They did missions. They got paid via magical loot from a strange voodoo-looking ragdoll in the bow of the ship. And you might want to remember him for later. He's quite important. The group, as well as doing missions, they were also trying to uncover the mysteries surrounding this necklace that had these two voices driving them forwards. And they knew that this necklace was linked to why they were on the run. It's also important to note that while they were going around on this kind of pirate ship doing these missions, the company medic who was on the ship, she was a cleric named Rin Trueheart. And Rin had been researching that at this time there was trouble amongst the gods. And just like the voodoo doll, remember Rin as well. She'll be important for later. So these kind of missions that the group were doing, in some way or another, they mainly involve run-ins with the heroes of Phandelver from Campaign 1. And what they noticed is that these heroes of Phandelver had become possessed. Some had become mutated and were no longer themselves. And upon the adventurers of Vessel defeating the heroes of Phandelver, bright orbs would be released from the bodies of those old heroes, and they would rise up into the sky. So eventually, via the two voices in the necklace, the adventurers in Vessel soon found out the truth. And the following information is very important, I suppose, moving forwards. So the Forgotten Realms universe that these campaigns take place in, they were supposedly created, the whole universe was created by an overgod named Ao. And Ao, as well as supposedly being a creator, he was also in charge of keeping the other gods who existed in this universe in check. Now, strangely, he entrusted another god named Torm, who was the god of duty and righteousness. He entrusted Torm with the ability to trap gods inside of objects. Not only that, but also how to trap gods inside of people. And kind of once he had taught Torm this ability, Ao just disappeared for an unknown reason. Now, Torm, being this super righteous god, he started taking advantage of these powers. And he started trapping gods who he just flat out didn't agree with. He started off trapping gods inside of objects. And the necklace I was talking about before with the two voices, these were two of the first gods that he kind of entrapped down on Toril. But he was also there that day that the heroes of Phandelver defeated the Black Spider. Torm was actually inside of the super powerful vortex that I mentioned in the first adventure. Seeing the strength and constitution of these heroes of Phandelver, he basically, over the course of the 10 years, he began using them as vessels for these gods who had basically done wrong as well. During Vessel, Torm found out that the Free Company adventurers had been releasing these gods from their prisons by killing them. So he actually comes down to this world of Toril to destroy them. He was so obsessed with cleaning, the whole Forgotten Realms universe, including Toril, which is the planet that these adventurers happen in. And anyone who does anything wrong, he wants to wipe them out. So the adventurers of Vessel found this out over the course of the campaign. They were forced to battle him with the help of some companions, and they managed to defeat him. With Torm being killed, someone had to take his place in this thing known as the Cosmic Wheel. It's basically a ring of gods where they keep each other in balance. The forces of evil and good and lawful and chaotic. Now, in the final battle, Rin, who was the cleric I was talking about before, she sacrificed herself. And she actually took Torm's position as the new god of duty, even leaving her son behind. In the epilogue to that campaign, Rin was talking to the other gods, and she was basically asking them, where the hell is the overgod Ao? Why isn't he controlling the other gods? Why did he let Torm get out of hand? And the gods around the circle in this really strange looking place, they basically answered to Rin, we don't know. We don't know where Ao has gone, and we don't know why he has left us. And then Vessel ended with the players finding out, not the characters, but the players finding out that Ao had been on the ship the whole time. The voodoo doll I was talking about before, that was Ao. So Adventure Bitches Extreme happened the year after the events of Vessel, and although I'll leave some details out of this X-rated one-shot, it should be known that the trio of adventurers, they had a choice at the end of this adventure, and their choice was to either join the local militia in hunting and killing an ancient dragon and his wormling, or they could side with the dragon, save the wormling, and burn the militia and part of the village to a crisp. And the trio chose the latter, and they basically rode the dragons and burnt the village and the militia. So a big jump here was the beginning of our campaign, The Curse of Strahd. The adventurers in this one, who were later known as Dr. McPub, actually didn't originate from Toril, but instead they originated from a planet called Abir. They met at an inn for their own personal reasons, and they were headhunted for an adventure. Setting off on this adventure, and upon kind of being surrounded in mist during the night, Dr. McPub eventually found out that they had been teleported to the demiplane of dread known as Barovia. And in this demiplane, they were trapped by yet more mist and the land's host, a Strahd von Zarovich. Very early on, Dr. McPub were entrusted with a pet snail. So again, like Rin and the Voodoo Doll, remember this snail for later. He's kind of important. So Dr. McPub, they start to explore this demiplane Barovia, and they uncover the mysteries of this land and its host, while gaining allies along the way. Most notably, one being the great wizard Mordenkainen, and another being Vistani, and a Vistani called Asriel. Now, upon their travels, Dr. McPub learns that Strahd, who was this count of the land, that he was basically bringing new souls to this land of Barovia to sacrifice to the mist. The mist ended up being a demigod who had broken out of his prison in a place called the Amber Temple. And this demigod was known as Vampire. And basically Vampire had given the powers to Strahd von Zarovich. Vampire was using the souls as fuel to propel this demiplane of dread, known as Barovia, through this space called the Astral Plane and towards a place called the Nine Hells. And again, the players didn't know why this was happening. Why was Barovia being pushed towards the Nine Hells? Anyway, to defeat Strahd and Vampire, the demigod, all but one of Dr. McPub became corrupted by the evil that lurked in Barovia. Meg was turned into a vampire against her will. Clyde had taken up a pact with the demigod of lycanthropy in the Amber Temple, and he actually became a werewolf. Poor Cups found a cursed staff, which had basically made him hell-bent on gaining power. And this was just before he met another demigod who was a demigod of liches in the Amber Temple. And Cups making a pact, he actually became a lich himself, in which he was host to this demi-lich. Only Penfold came out untouched. So, using their newfound allies as a distraction, Dr. McPub snuck into Strahd's castle, and they defeated both Strahd and Vampire, but it did come at a cost. Cups, the Lich, he was blasted from this world. With Strahd dead and the mist gone, a lot of the population of Barovia was free to leave with the help of Asriel and Mordenkainen. Meg was no longer a vampire, and her and Penfold, they stayed behind and they opened up this orphanage to look after those that were staying in Barovia. Now with Clyde, with his pact remaining intact with this werewolf demigod, he became the new lord of the land and took on the curse that had consumed Strahd. He was still forced to bring in souls to continue to fuel the new mists, to still take Barovia to the Nine Hells. Now, in the epilogue to Curse of Strahd, the snail I was talking about before made its way to some old ruins in Barovia and was actually greeted by Ao, still in his same ragdoll voodoo form that he was in Vessel. He addresses the snail as Torm, the god who had gone out of control in Vessel, and he explains that all of Torm wasn't defeated that day by those adventurers. And as part of Torm's regenerative process, Ao wanted him to learn through the actions of Dr. McPub that sometimes sacrifice and sometimes evil is needed to keep the balance in the universe. Ao explains that just like themselves, Torm isn't ready to be returned to his god form just yet. But a change does need to be made within the old god of duty for him to have a chance of redemption. So, lastly, 3 years after the events of Curse of Strahd, we have the adventure An Evening in Candlekeep. It's the tale of a group of adventurers who are sent to investigate an earthquake from within the Great Library. Upon investigation, a group of custodians, who are kind of like the janitors of the Library of Candlekeep, it turns out that they had been approached by a man in a dragon mask. He supposedly persuaded the custodians, with the help of golden threats, to take a large selection of special books from the keep via an arcane-powered rocket, and to basically fire the rocket with these books up into space. And this man with the dragon mask persuaded them that no one deserves the contents of these books. Now, although the rocket launch was a success and it did take off from Candlekeep, the custodians were defeated by the adventurers. And instead of the adventurers letting the rocket make it to space with all these books in, the adventurers instead brought the rocket back down into the ocean. Just before it was about to hit the ocean, they managed to teleport out. Now, although one member of the adventurers left sneakily with a book in hand, the remaining adventurers were made aware of a Lord Dawnwood, who was taking an interest in finding old tombs, who might be able to recover these lost books. And this Lord Dawnwood, he is trying to organise an adventurers league in a time where adventurers are super rare. So that's it for the previous adventures and campaigns that have gone on. Why is Ao in hiding, leaving the gods to their chaotic ways? Will Torm, the god of duty and righteousness, ever not be a snail? Will the special books that were took from Candlekeep ever be returned? Now, all of this is going to be explored in the Tyrannical Tales of Saltkeep. So let's move on to the second, much shorter part of the video, the settings. Now, the Tyrannical Tales of Saltkeep, it takes place 1 year after the events of An Evening in Candlekeep. And it obviously, once again, takes place in the Forgotten Realms universe, on that planet of Toril, and mainly on this continent of Faerun. You want to see Faerun as the Middle Earth of the Forgotten Realms. Now, present day of Toril is a super dangerous place. There's a lot of natural disasters going on of late. Some regions have even just disappeared, and no one can find them. Whole civilizations have reappeared that were lost a long time ago. It's a very confusing time to be alive. No one knows why this is happening. And rather than investigate this, the great leaders of all these different regions, they are too selfish to really look after the continent of Faerun as a whole. They're basically looking after their own. So these disasters and pockets of magical chaos, they're uncovering lost civilizations from the deep. And a couple of years prior, it drew in and killed most of the adventurers over time. Because of this, adventurers are a very rare sight in this campaign. For this campaign, when you're thinking about your character, above all else, that character needs a burning reason to become an adventurer in this time when, being an adventurer is the most dangerous profession in the world. Your character would have heard of Lord Dawnwood, who is gathering people at a place called Red Beach. They would know that this Lord Dawnwood is creating this Adventurers League, and the reason for your character to join Lord Dawnwood and this Adventurers League, it could be for glory, it could be for riches, it could be for the promise of saving the world, or it could be for, a more personal reason. So that's it. If you players have any questions about what I've said about the settings or about the story so far, just message me. And I can't wait to get started with you guys and get stuck in. Finally, as promised, here is the too long didn't read, as I'm aware that this would be a long video. And this is the gist of what has happened. Ready? Ao, the most powerful god, has gone into hiding. The other gods, since Daddy is not home, have caused some shit. One of these gods, Torm, got defeated, but has been reincarnated as a snail for a chance at redemption. A separate bunch of adventurers are slowly floating to hell. The world has gone crazy and disasters are happening everywhere. Some really important books got blasted inside of a rocket from a library into a far-away ocean. A guy called Lord Dawnwood needs adventurers who are the adventuring sort and don't mind deadly adventures, since all of the adventurers are dead. Peace.